Sweaty. I need to really get used to this living in this country.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. Yeah. I was just looking at Oman, though. Their humidity is like 59%. This kind of heat and that high humidity. I used to live in Yemen, right on the Red Sea coast. That's exactly what it was like. I hated it. So I absolutely know I'm not going to be able to live there. I still can start my LLC there, but I'm not going to be able to live there. I can't live with that humidity.
I used to work in the mines up in up in Western Australia.
Really? Wow.
And that was boots, long dark pants, long sleeve shirt, a helmet, between 35 to 40 degrees.
Oh my God.
And 80% humidity.
Oh my God. How did you do that?
Struggle.
For sure.
Struggle.
Oh, that's tough. That's really tough.
Yeah,
when it's that hot and that humid, it's unbearable.
It wasn't nice. I left there after a year. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I understand that.
No. But anyway, so how did you come across TRE?
Okay. So I was living in the Middle East and I was working with refugees of war because the countries I was living in were at war. Yeah. But I had a clinical therapy background and it was completely ineffective. I couldn't use it at all. And so what I ended up doing was just living there and doing whatever was needed. Like if there was a house that was bombed and they needed furniture in it or they needed healthcare for the children or something. So I just did sort of that kind of behavior. But while I was living in those situations, I was both experiencing it as well as seeing some patterns. And so I observed that one of the most common patterns, obviously, was this ducking into a fetal response when we were scared from bombings or shootings or whatever. But it fascinated me that the whole human species was doing it, everybody, and it didn't matter what country we were from. So I saw that I was watching the human organism has protective mechanisms of survival built right into it. And this is one of them, to squeeze down like that. And so then I just reflected on, okay, well, what part of the brain does that? How do we do it so quickly? And what muscle pattern is in our bodies, every single body identically the same, that can produce that fetal response? And so I was very curious about it. So I studied that, and once I finished studying that, I realized, okay, I understand why it does that and how it does it. But then my question later on became, what does that do to us? Create lower back pains or tension and patterns in the body. If we repeat that pattern over and over, what's it doing? And then the second part of that was when I was in a bombing, and we were in the basement of this building, and I had some kids on my lap, and they were tremoring in terror. And what I realized, because I shook in fear as well, but I realized the children were tremoring in an uninhibited way. They were just 2 years old. They had not yet learned how to control this. But when I looked around the room, the teenagers, 11, 12, 13, they were shaking too, but they were trying to stop it. Yeah. And none of the adults were shaking. Right. And it made me realize, oh my God, the children are showing us the natural human response of something, whereas we learn how to control that behavior as we grow up as adults. And I realized that tremor mechanism, when I talked to several neurologists, friends of mine, and physiologists, that in fact helps to downregulate the body. So when it gets excited and it gets tight or tense and the nervous system elevates, it just literally shakes itself as a way of downregulating the nervous system and reducing tension in the physical structure of the body. Yeah. I put those two together, and that's how I developed the exercise routine, is you simply invert the body from its fetal response. Yeah. And when you do that, it activates its own shaking mechanism, and then you passively lay on the floor and it shakes out tightness in the structure. Wow. It was really terrible to say, but it was like stupid observation. It's like everybody saw everything that I saw. I just asked a different question about it. Why do we do the fetal response? How do we do it? And why does this body shake? Yeah. Rather than, oh, stop it from shaking, that's bad, which is the narrative we have. Yeah. I just asked, could it possibly be doing something useful for us?
Yeah. So I noticed, so two things. I noticed in one of the videos, animals, you had animals that sit there and they shake and they tremor. I've never seen that before, but I've seen it in the videos.
Right.
So how did you get that link between those two as well?
Well, there's quite a few books written on this, that this is called in us, in humans, our mammalian heritage, because mammals in the wild tremor all the time. And there's books written about that because they don't suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, even though they live in life or death possible threats in the Serengeti all the time. But if they run away and they save themselves, and they go to the watering hole, they'll just tremor all over their bodies because they're not inhibited by an ego. And so their body organically tremors it down and they can fall asleep. They're still living in a danger, but their body regulates itself.
Wow. Okay, and the next one. When we're doing that, what is that? Because you said you discovered, like, okay, I work out why that is. But then why do we do that?
Our species stands upright, and so this is the underbelly is exposed, and that's very vulnerable. Whereas we have a spine and strong muscles in the back to protect us. So our nature is to protect the underbelly. See, and so that's what we do when we fall off a bicycle or whatever. We always end up rolling forward to protect all of this area, which is more vulnerable than there.
Okay, that makes sense. So with obviously extending the spine, we go in the butterfly position and then we bring our legs this way. How did you work out that was the position that we should be to be able to activate all this?
Well, there are a lot of different body methods that do this position. Like you can find it in Tai Chi, Qigong, you can find it in yoga. It's called the butterfly position in yoga. The only thing I did was I had the person elevate the pelvis because we needed to stretch the front of the torso, see? And so we elevated it, and then when we held it there for a while, it would begin to tremor. And that's in what's called core energetics, bioenergetics. All of these different energetic therapies have this sort of thing. I just isolated it a little bit more according to the fetal response that I kept seeing. And then when you set it down, and to close slowly is real key as well, because that's the adductor muscles, and they begin to shake because you're neither closing nor opening your adductors. And so they're held in a state of sort of equilibrium there, and then they start to move. But then we use that to our advantage as you close them more, and then it tremors through the structure.
I noticed that a lot. Because I had one person, so they left a comment on the video where they said, I don't tend to shake this much. So are they doing it wrong? Are they doing it incorrectly?
No, actually, everybody is doing it 100% correctly. It would be an impossibility to do it wrong. It's just that we don't understand, why do some shake more than others? There could be, I boiled it down to 3 different reasons. Either it's physiological, they're just tight in their structure, and they might be closing too quickly or not holding their pelvis up, because you have to do the exercise to the degree that it stresses your structure. And for you and I, that would be 2 different amounts of time. And maybe closing slower at 2 different amounts of times, because I need to generate a bigger charge in you because you have bulkier muscle than in me because I'm more fragile. So I don't need to close as slow. You close slower so that you charge more. But there could also be a psycho-emotional component to it, see? And that becomes a little bit more complicated. There could be also physical injury. If it's a woman, as an example, did she birth a child? Did she have a miscarriage? Did she have an epidural? Was it a complex birthing process? All of those will create lots of traumas, what we call traumas, or tension patterns in the structure. And so it's like, the body then needs to work through all of that, which may not be in your structure, but in somebody else's structure. So they're not doing it wrong. They can't. The body's just showing us, here's as much as I can do right now, given the internal circumstance I'm in.
Interesting.
Okay.
Does that mean she'd have to hold the butterfly position longer to be able to then get that activation?
That would be my guess. Either hold the pelvis up more, or hold the knees out longer even, because I was working with a woman yesterday. She's an athlete. She does all sorts of athletes. Her legs are really powerfully strong. So it's like, all right, you cannot close your knees as quickly as the rest of the group because they don't have the same resistance and strength that you have. So you want to do it slower. So that's my first guess all the time is, all right, let's stress the structure a little bit more, and then let's close the legs a little bit slower. And this is the problem with most of us, is that the body is going to move tissue. The ego wants it to move faster. See, and the body says, wait, I'm going as fast as I can here. Because an ego is just a thought, whereas when we're working with the structure, we're actually working with physical matter.
Yeah.
And so that's a little bit more slower.
Yeah. Interesting. So I found today, so I did it in the sauna today, and I was like, I'm going to play with heat. I'm going to play with a different sort of thing instead of vibration. Because I also tried with pranayama, bee buzzing breath, to get the vibrations going through. But I actually found I didn't need to raise the pelvis. I just went straight to the butterfly position, and that happened straight away.
Yeah.
And I found that was actually where I got the most tremors through the hips.
Right.
Which was very interesting.
Yeah. If you continue to do this, quite often you'll never have to lift the pelvis again.
Okay.
We're only doing that to sort of make the initial breakthrough in the structure.
Right.
But once you've trained your body that you just start closing your knees and you're available to the tremoring, it already knows how to do that. And it's like on board with you. Okay, I know what he wants, and I'm ready to do it too.
Yeah. I think that's been the beauty of a year of body, like so long in bodybuilding, is I understand my body a lot more, so I can activate the different muscles. The one part that I do find is I'm very good with surrender, but it's surrendering and relaxing and allowing that body, when you have that point where you're kind of in limbo,
right?
It's just allowing it to kind of just let that tension just drop. And it's every time I can do it, it activates, but it's that point in the middle there that really can be a struggle to release.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I keep telling people, although this is a body-based technique, I don't want the body dominating the ego, and I don't want the ego dominating the body, which is normally how we live. They've got to become friends. So we've got to look for the mutual dialogue, and that's where that dialogue occurs. When you're struggling a little bit because the tremors aren't exactly coming in, and the ego wanted to go faster than that, and should I close my legs, or am I doing it right? That to me is the dialogue that I'm looking for, because they should harmoniously be cohabitating.
Yeah. So what are some techniques to be able to get yourself to allow that cohabitation to happen?
What I tell people most of the time is watch TV, read a book, listen to music, distract the ego, which gives the body a chance to then move. And that'll even happen when I'm talking to somebody, because I see if they're not able to let go, I'll deliberately go and talk to them. I kind of kept bullshit with them over anything, but just to keep them distracted to me, and their body will start to work. So I tell them to do that, because what happens is, as it tremors, and if you're distracted, it's actually producing pleasure and relaxation, which convinces the ego of, oh, I like this. Even though I'm not in control of it, this is good for me. And then it lets go.
Yeah, it's actually it is very strange, the feeling. It's actually quite enjoyable.
It's weird or unusual, but for the body physically, it's very pleasurable.
Oh yeah. I was on the phone with my girlfriend last night, and I was like, I need to do this, but I've got to talk to her. Okay, I'm going to do this. She distracted me the entire time, and I'm on the phone to her, and she's looking at me, and I'm just sitting there going,
yeah, very good. Exactly. That's exactly right. It works perfectly. Because we don't need the cortex or the ego, because what's happening in the body is subcortical, what we call subcortical. And so those are more primitive parts of the brain. That's why you can have a dialogue with somebody and still tremor. They're not interfering with one another.
Yeah. So the other thing when we did it the other week is you talk about levels. Because we did, I think, about 4 or 5 rounds.
Right.
How many levels, it chops and changes, I'm guessing, between each person, how in tune they are with their body.
Yeah.
But what's a time frame for how long someone will do this?
Well, it's a little complicated, because we're talking about muscle, and for the past 15 or 20 years, we've introduced and understood the benefits of fascia, understanding fascia in the body. Well, fascia has many different patterns in the structure. It surrounds individual muscles and groups of muscles. And so when you're working, it's like, sometimes we could see, oh, that's the left fascia pattern. Everything on your left side is moving. It's all connecting somehow. So you could see that's kind of easy. But other times it's like, okay, I can see that the shoulders are moving, but the chest isn't moving. But then all of a sudden the chest moves. And so now fascia patterns have started to release and started to slide and glide, we call it.
Yep.
And so there's like thousands of different ways that this will play itself out.
Yeah.
So when I tell people, probably if you did this regularly, like 2 to 3 days a week for about a year, you're pretty much working all the different patterns in your structure, and they're now starting to work together and you're feeling more connected in the tissue. Then the rest of it is just keeping up with it, because we still live stressful lives and our bodies still contract.
It's the same with stretching, going to the gym, all these
Exactly
things.
right.
We need to continue because it just stops otherwise.
Right.
I actually found, like when I left last week, you said, just take notice of how you walk as you're walking. And it almost felt like swagger.
Right.
Everything felt slower, more controlled. The steps were longer.
Yeah, exactly right. What I like is it actually does slow us down, because when we pull up, we don't realize how much we're almost pulling our body through life from our head. And when we really get the structure to actually be aligned like that, all of a sudden you're sitting on top of your pelvis and you're kind of just walking through life. It's just a little bit easier. There's nothing to pull you anymore.
Yeah. When we spent so long, so conditioned to be a certain way, again, holding all that stress from a kid.
Right.
And a lot of people will remain that way for the rest of for their entire life.
Yeah. You can watch people today, how they're being pulled through life still with their heads, and their body just kind of follows.
Yeah, it's interesting. So a mix of this mixed with other types of therapies, what you'd recommend as well?
Well, I love all types of therapies because I think they all are coming from different angles and different perspectives. The one thing that I think differentiates this one is that this is truly organically you. It's not a method, it's not a technique in one sense. I don't like using that sometimes. It is a genetic encoding in you. And so every human being has a right to know it's in there. They have a right to access this. And then it's up to them whether they want to use it for the rest of their lives to their advantage or not. But it's part of our genetic encoding.
Yeah. It's beautiful. I was actually saying to one of my clients the other day, I'm like, I'd love to just do some of this with you, because I feel just with just talking, being able to surrender, but then adding something like this in is going to be more than enough for a lot of people. Because it's that release. We hold our tension, we hold our stress in our muscles. It's like we see people when they're walking around like this because the stress and tension is in their shoulders.
Right. What's really interesting is that although this is very odd in terms of the social construct that we have and the consciousness of the body, it's so actually normal for the structure that when people finally do it, they can't believe how easy it is to access, how effective it is, and sometimes immediately, and how normal it is to their body after they start doing it. And they realize, why haven't we been taught this, or why haven't we been doing it our entire life? It's part of our genetic makeup.
Yeah. But you look at animals as well, just going back to the animals.
Yeah.
You think everything is them is the basic instinct. They need to eat, they need to sleep.
Yeah.
They're running from that. So it's like, it makes sense to link it towards us as a natural response.
For sure. I mean, they're already showing us. If you watch a dog in a thunderstorm, they'll tremor.
Yeah.
Okay. You watch kittens, they're purring all the time.
Yeah.
And there's always a tremor. If you watch a horse and they fall and they get up, they'll tremor through the whole structure. Or if they get a chiropractic adjustment, the horse will shake all over the place. It's the same thing. Same thing, identical.
Because I saw the video which had a guy doing the exercise, but he had a cat lying on top of it.
Right. Yeah.
Does that happen all the time? Or is
Very, very often. If I work with people and they have pets in the room, their pet will almost always come over and lay down beside them, like pushing up against them, because they identify with that, because that's our animal nature, and they can identify not with us as humans, but as animals. We're mammals to them now when we tremor.
I'm going to try this.
Yeah.
I am going to try this, because when I saw that, I was like, that is wholesome.
Yeah,
that the cat's
exactly.
There. But I really want to try that as well.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So we're sort of brought ourselves down to their level, and
but it's the basics.
They're comfortable.
It's the basics. It's like when I was in the military. It's like you're a soldier first, so you need to know the basics to be a soldier first.
Exactly.
It's the same as this, because we all come from the same.
Right.
We're remote. Actually, I wonder if back when humans first started, would they have had this as a natural response back?
Oh, I'm certain that they did, because even when I was in Africa quite a few times, they would tell me, oh, we know this tremor because when we do ceremony, whatever ceremonies they did, people tremored naturally. But this is interesting to me. If you explore this historically, when it came to the, quote, Western world, people still tremored, but only under two occasions. Either it was an evil demon leaving their body, or it was the Holy Spirit coming into their body. But either way, the body was being overwhelmed by an energetic source from outside. That's how they incorporated it into Western world.
Wow.
Isn't that interesting?
Wow.
It's a sociological transformation of the tremor mechanism, which was organic in more natural cultures, as just seeing as a way of releasing tightness and tension. But we couldn't fit it in our cultural construct because we have to be in control. So what happens if you're out of control? It's got to be something from outside doing it to you.
I actually had this conversation the other day. I think it was Saturday night. It was more related to religion.
Right, exactly.
They were curious about where I stood with religion, and I was like, look, everyone believes it's free to believe what they want, but a lot of people, for me, I believe God is within me. The universe is within me. I believe in the universe. For a lot of other people that believe in religion, they believe in an external source to be able to give them that peace and calm.
Right.
And everything like that. It was very interesting that that's how it's been tied in with Western society.
Well, now what I see changing now, and I'm making a couple of videos on it, people are doing a lot of psychedelic psychotherapy. It's becoming very, very popular. And what's really interesting is they often tremor when they let go into a psychedelic experience. And so now what a lot of these psychedelic psychotherapists are doing is they're giving them a TRE session before they ingest any type of mushrooms or psychedelics to help them feel comfortable with the tremoring and say, this is going to happen.
Interesting.
As your body lets go.
So I've done ayahuasca about 9 times. And I've had a really strong calling to go do it again. But I've had a few moments during my ceremony where it felt like a shiver instead of a tremor. But I wasn't cold, but I was...
Exactly right.
Wow.
Let go into it. And that's what they're teaching, so that when they do begin to experience this movement in the body, they think, oh, this is great, it's working, rather than, oh my God, what's happening to me?
Wow.
Big difference.
Very big difference. My God. If only I'd known that at that point in time.
Because you could just give into it easier, knowing your body is having a positive effect, and it's simply reducing the stressors in you so that you can relax into the experience more.
Okay, so when we're terrified or scared, but we're not crunching like this, but when people are shivering because they're terrified, is that...
It's the same thing. Oh, it's exactly the same thing. You watch children, teenagers in particular, how they'll move their leg like this.
I do it.
Yeah. Well, all that is a discharge of energy. It's like something's building up. See, we're a self-regulating organism. So when the nervous system gets a little too high, even though if we're not aware of it, it will start moving the structure to simply discharge.
Interesting.
It'll get higher and it'll discharge again. We should not have the states of anxiety we have as a human species. We're a self-regulating species. But we need this mechanism, this moving, that helps us down-regulate and keeps us calm.
Interesting, because they've always tied as being like an ADHD trait, where it's just like you've got that goes with it.
Everybody claims that, and I'm not sure it's exactly that, actually. It's just a high charge. High charge is not necessarily ADHD. Now, I'm not going to go into all the clinical stuff about it, but when I watch people and they tell me, oh, I was diagnosed with ADHD, I think, you're a little bit too high elevated. If we can bring that down, I bet we can smooth out that rhythm a little bit more.
This is an interesting question, because I had my diagnosis now. A lot of people I know, they go, oh, I don't believe in it. I don't believe in this. And it's like, okay, so how do we have that discharge then if people like myself have been diagnosed with it? There are times where I'm doing this and people will go, what are you anxious about? I'm like, I'm not anxious.
Exactly.
I'm actually very calm. I feel very chill.
Well, unfortunately, it's sad. We do that to children all the time. Stop shaking. And you tell them to stop shaking. And we have them sit in school, be still. Our whole training as a social species is to control the structure.
Yeah.
And yet the human organism is designed to both be in control and to be out of control. That when we fall asleep, we have to let go of control. When we have sex, we have to let go of control. There are many times when we laugh, when we cry, it's all about letting go of control. And so the organism in which we live should be able to move back and forth in this interplay between control and letting go of control.
Yes.
That's the aliveness of the human organism.
Interesting.
It's not one or the other. Our problem is if we're stuck on either polarity. See, if we're stuck, then that's when we have problems. But if we're fluidly able to move back and forth, that's how we live.
So if we remove a diagnosis and we just look at people that are what you would consider to be overstimulated, running like that, compared to people that are not, why does it seem to be certain people are and other people are considered? Why are these people considered to be neurodivergent? The other people can be considered neurotypical.
Right.
Why are they the ones that have they have the too much energy flowing through them?
Right. Well, see, I think, and this is not to say that ADHD isn't a valid diagnosis.
Yeah.
But what I see a lot of times is, particularly in families where there might be a high charge, as an example. Maybe there's a parent who's an alcoholic, or the parents both live under stress, social stress, financial stress, whatever. The child's nervous system will elevate. And it'll stay at an elevated state because it has to deal with the circumstances it's in. Now, what it does is it actually shifts its baseline up to there.
Right, okay.
See, and so now, this is their normal baseline. For them to come down here, oftentimes afterwards, feels frightening, like depression, loneliness, and all they're doing is coming back to their baseline. But since this has been the baseline, and has been full of excited charge and activity, this feels completely empty to them.
Yep. Okay, interesting. Because I have noticed one thing since I've gone through living at the monastery, since I've been practicing TRE and everything else I've been doing, I came off the medication start of August. That's when I stopped the medication, and I felt a lot calmer. I felt really good. I felt like I've got my personality back.
Right.
I felt I got my wit back. There's all these things. But one thing I have noticed is I'm napping a lot more.
Yeah.
So it feels like I don't have that level of energy. So is that my body just slowly trying to
Oh, absolutely. It's readjusting. Let the napping happen for sure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's not a big deal at all, because it'll nap. All the napping is doing is actually saying, okay, let me put you at rest because I'm still working here.
Okay.
And I can still come down even lower.
Okay.
And so it's actually assisting you in a sense.
Amazing. So if I keep doing this, practically I'm going to be that chilled, I'm probably going to be asleep.
Exactly right. You'll be very chilled. You'll be able to walk outside in all of the chaos and just you stay chill.
I feel like I'm that already. That's the thing. So like, how much more relaxed can I get?
I know it sounds really odd, but there's where you talk about your spirituality. How much more centered can I become?
Yeah.
How much more can I actually hold wisdom and insight in the marketplace, as the Buddhists would say?
Yeah.
How much can I stay centered and grounded?
Yeah.
And to me, that's now an inner journey that you're talking about, not just calming down the nervous system, but actually doing something much more internal, which is where we get in touch with our consciousness, our energy field, etc.
Yeah. Okay, this then stems me on to the next part of this. You lived at monastery. You've done some living at monasteries around the world. Why, and what was the calling to go start doing that?
Well, I think, I'll say it from my perspective, but I think every human being needs a balance between activity and stillness, chaos and predictability. It's like we need to always be able to move back and forth between all that the world all that's available in the world to us, everything we may experience. Can we fluidly move among all these things? So, because I was in a lot of war, I've lived in a lot of countries with severe poverty, I was intensely engaged in humanity. And I needed to intensely disengage from humanity to find my own self.
Yeah.
And so solitude and silence, even to this day, is preferable to me because I still engage so much with humanity. It's like, I know now that I need those extended periods of quiet, stillness, because all they do is get me to breathe into me which then allows me to walk out into the world with the calmness and ease that sometimes doesn't exist in the world.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
That's the exact same reason I went and did this.
Yeah, exactly.
Exact same reason. I actually highly recommend everyone goes and does something like this.
I agree. I think the human organism needs it. I don't think it's a luxury, honestly. I think it's a necessity.
Yeah.
And we're lucky that we were able to do that. But I think the human organism draws us to that. I mean, that's when you listen to farmers or people who are living out in the country, and they're much more in touch with nature, and they wake up in the morning and there's complete stillness and silence.
Yeah.
That grounds them to do whatever work they need to do after that.
Yeah.
And when people don't have that, like in the city, they want to run out. Now, they only do it for vacation because they can't take it that long.
Yeah.
But you take people from the country into the city, they can't stay there that long either. It's like we've just got to be more fluid.
I agree. I think now coming back into society, I think as much as I enjoy the monastery, I don't think I could go back out there and do another month. I think I need to be able to find that balance. So a few people have made the suggestion of take 1 week every, say, 6 months, go somewhere, complete solitude, and just disconnect that way. And I think that's going to be the fine balance to be able to...
Yeah, I think finding our own individual rhythms is exactly right. Because my rhythm doesn't work for everybody, and neither would yours. But if we find our own, we're the same. So you do it once every 6 months, I do it once every 2 months. But we're still balancing according to our rhythm, and then that's how we have an interaction that's equal to us.
I think me and one of the boys that I did the monastery with, he's actually with Phil in Thailand. It was, we need to find our own middle way.
Yeah.
Because the Buddhist stuff, you want to find the middle way.
Yes.
And it's like, instead of finding their middle way, it's finding yours.
Yeah.
Because
perfect.
It's not going to match to everyone. This is one of the things that I see people, they spend their life trying to match to something, or what is fit a square peg into a round hole.
Right.
And
exactly.
they just can't. And they don't find what works for them.
And what we need to recognize too is that middle way may change in different stages of our lives. Because I just turned 70, and it's like, the middle way is shifting a little bit more now. Different than when I was 40, see?
Yeah.
And so it's like, if we could just be in touch with ourselves, we'll be able to follow that, because the organism is constantly sort of signaling us what it needs. It's just a matter of being sensitive enough to feel it.
It's evolving. We are constantly evolving. Just like our taste buds change every 7 years, all these things.
Exactly right.
We're always changing. We just need to listen to it.
Yeah.
So what was your biggest takeaway that you had from the experience you've had living in monasteries and all that? What was the biggest one?
I think my biggest takeaway was, it sounds silly, but it's true. It's like, you're on this planet for like 80 years. Why aren't you just enjoying it? Just see what happens today, live in the present moment, and just be an observer of it. It's not like there's no plan, there's no big thing. Put down, I have to do this or I have to complete that. Yes, we'll do things, but it should be more organically a movement from inside rather than a drivenness to achieve something. And it's like, you got about 80 years. That's it, buddy. And everybody's going to die at the end of it. So it's like, our agreement in life is that I know I'm dying at the end of it. So why not play the game and enjoy it?
I couldn't agree more.
I
couldn't agree more. So with going back into TRE, so if someone wanted to actually become certified in this, how do they do that?
Okay, so currently right now, we have a website, traumaprevention.com, and you can get on there and find a provider all over the world and training programs all over the world. Some are live, some are online, some are a mixture of both. And we're in about 60 or 70 countries, something like that. But you can train anywhere. And the training essentially is basically, you have to do this yourself, and then you have to you study some of the theory behind it. But then what's really important is we observe you or supervise you as you teach somebody else how to do it. Are they safe with you? If I recommend somebody to go to you, are they going to be safe? Do I know that you know what you're doing? So that the training program, the certification program, is really based on very, very practical stuff. Like, just make sure this person, when we say they're certified, that we can recommend somebody to them and they'll be safe and have a good experience.
Amazing. I'm not going to lie. I'm very interested to do my certification. just add to everything I'm already doing because.
Well, that's the whole point. Add it to everything else.
Yeah.
Because you'll know when it fits in. When's the right moment to introduce this into all the other things that you're doing.
Yeah, I think it's vital because it's less about as we said, it's more the internal approach because we can fix ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think I never used to believe that. I was so rigid, especially with bodybuilding.
Right.
Everything that I was taking it is always using the external sources.
Right.
The more that I've stepped away from bodybuilding, the more I've realized, oh shit, I've got this power to do this myself.
Right.
The more I do that, the more I'm like, okay, I want to start teaching. So I want to start sharing this with people because it is. And I think coming from, again, that background, there's such a demographic and people that follow that.
Yeah.
If they see the switch that I'm doing and they go, oh, I trust him. Okay, I see what he's doing now. Okay, I trust him now.
Right.
It can help people start to have that shift.
Yeah. Well, that's what I think is important, is that we have to learn how to let all of this stuff, just sort of the insignificant stuff fall away, all this external stuff, and just look at what are we really possible, what are we capable of as a human organism, which is a lot, see? And if we just follow the healthy diet and all that sort of stuff, it's like we have a lot of potential in us. And I think there's still more things in us to be explored that we don't even know about.
Look at with Buddhist monks, they talk about going through your levels of enlightenment.
Yeah.
And when you reach certain levels of it, that's where they start to have different things that you can, whether it's telepathy and...
Exactly right.
There are so many things that we have.
All of that is we're capable of.
Yeah.
And so...
It's very interesting the day we all unlock that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, look, I want to say thank you. That was incredible.
Yeah,
I learned a lot.
Great.
So,
thank you so much.
very much.
Oh, it's nice talking to you.
Where can anyone find you?
Okay, so you can go to traumaprevention.com. That's the place to find trainings or private sessions with people. If they're looking at my stuff, it's YouTube and Instagram, just David Berceli.
Yeah.
I'm on TikTok as well, and that's called Dr. 369 because I'm kind of incognito there.
It's a good name though.
Right,
Very
exactly. And so that's to look at visuals of people tremoring from all over the world so people could see it. And oftentimes they'll identify with, that's what I need to do. And that's what I want them to identify with.
Amazing.
But the exercises are free online. I do have a private website, david-berceli.com, which is a synthesized website from the big formal one.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you. That was great.
Thank you very much. You're amazing.
You're very welcome.
Thank
you so much.
You're amazing. Yes.